Hello and welcome to an exciting conversation ahead. My name is Brad Gauthier, and we have with us today Jim Nottingham. Jim has an impressive background building out technology hubs and labs throughout the world. He's done it in the US and he's done it globally. And in that process, he's learned a whole lot about what it takes to acquire talent into remote areas. What are the ingredients that would create a culture of collaboration and creativity? And also, very pressing this day and age is, what does the future of work look like? Because obviously remote work is really becoming a very popular option for a lot of people and a lot of organizations. But also at the same time, how does that match with all of the benefits that you get from in-person, the creative sparks that happen from the in-person meetings that we typically have in organizations. And so hopefully you appreciate the insights and ideas that Jim brings to the table. And we hope that you get something out of this that you can then use in your specific scenario. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jim. And Jim, could you give us a little background on yourself, and then we will hop into the conversation. So Jim?
Okay, great. First, want to thank you for having me. I met you through your wife, who used to work at HP. She's been just a great contact in my networks over the years. Very engaged, very plugged into the community, and very strong with her network. So it's been
Yes.
great meeting you too.
Thank
Yeah, I got my degrees, my bachelor's and master's in engineering. Went to work for HP. Worked for HP for, I don't know, 5 years or so, and then went with some friends from HP to do a startup, a small company. I think there were five of us when we started, and we grew that to be, got up to about 90, 95 people or so when we sold it. We sold the company to Cypress Semiconductor. And when we sold the company, I ended up going back to HP. I was thinking if I'm going to work for a big company, actually, I would like to work for HP. So that was in 2001. So I've been back at HP since, and like you say, I've done a lot of work on the print side of the business for a lot of years. I worked in the laser printing business. Had the opportunity to work with many, 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 many brilliant people. That's one thing that's always, just really been something that has attracted me to HP and kept me at HP, is I really like and love the people that I work with. Just because of literally, I've worked with some of the most, brilliant people in the world over the course of my career. And many of them, I can say, really were at HP. I've also had the opportunity to work for some very smart people that kind of define industries. I work with people today that have created categories and products and markets that, I just feel like I walk with giants. I've had the opportunity to work with some brilliant CEOs at HP. Some fantastic senior vice presidents who were my managers that I learned, I've learned so much from those managers. Actually, when I came back to HP, I ended up getting an MBA, and I learned a lot about, when I got the MBA, I learned why a lot of things that we did in the startup didn't work, or why they did work and we got lucky, or things that we did right. It was really a great experience to have a lot of real work experience and then get the MBA. But what I also learned in the MBA was I work for some pretty smart guys and gals.
Mm-hmm.
The people that I've worked with at HP have actually been pretty big when it comes to understanding business strategy, business models, and and developing, creating big teams or good teams, strong teams, developing people. Been very fortunate to work with great people that have taught me 100 times, 1,000 times more than I would ever learn in an MBA. You know, I've learned from my managers that I've worked with. So I worked in laser printers, mostly through R&D, worked my way up through R&D, became a vice president of R&D, eventually became the general manager of the laser printer hardware business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the site leader in Boise for several years. Then, you know, along came Samsung. HP acquired Samsung's printing business. And I moved to Korea and lived there for 2.5 years to integrate that team into HP. Uh, Fantastic once in a lifetime experience. Taught me a ton about, you know, I had all these big plans about, you know, we're going to integrate the technology, we're going to do all these great things. And that was all super important, but down here, it was all about culture. And so, and I should have known that. I mean, um, you know, working in Japan for 25, 30 years or whatever, 28 years, and working in Asia a lot, um, with lots of very strong partners that we had in Asia. I should have known, but really until you live there and you're trying to integrate, you don't know how important culture is. And it taught me a lot, both about why I love HP and the HP way, and also, you know, how to make, you know, what you got to do to make things work and how you build a culture. And it's been, you know, super, super valuable. Then last year, I had the opportunity to come and lead the workstation business. And so, you know, now I moved from print to personal systems, which is our PC business.
Mm-hmm.
I report to the president of PC business, which is Alex Joe. I worked with him many years ago when I was a general manager in print. He was in print at one point. So it's been a great experience to, you know, make the move from print to personal systems. And I got to tell you, the job I'm in now, and it's not just because it's the job I'm in now, it's absolutely my dream job. I didn't know it was going to be. I mean, it sounded exciting, but it is my dream job.
That's great.
I love it because it's really just super inspiring. So I manage the business that is responsible for workstations, which is really the high end of our PCs, either mobile workstations, you know, your high performance notebooks,
Mm-hmm.
or your super high performance desktops, the workstations. It's just really the top end, the highest performance you're going to get out of a PC. And it's my dream job because the customers that use our stuff actually change the world. I mean, every day is inspiring. When I talk to a customer, I walk out of the meeting just wanting to beat my chest because it's Tesla or it's DreamWorks or it's NASA. You know, it's people that are changing the world every day. It's doctors that are, you know, at GE working on MRIs to diagnose patients with COVID, and they need, you know, more throughput, more whatever, because they need to do more images. It's
Mm-hmm.
the doctors working on vaccines. It's the 3D people printing out 3D stuff so that our responders can have emergency PPE equipment that we 3D print, you know, and our workstations are the horsepower behind that. It's super inspiring to equip the world's change makers and creators with the tools they need to go change the world. And then, of course, our teams are phenomenal. We've got some brilliant engineers that create this tools and equipment that enable these customers to do what they do. And so from the customer to our partners to our employees it's just like it's the best job ever. And I'll tell you right now, it's tough because people aren't buying the high-end stuff in a down economy. I mean, our PC business is doing great, but the workstation market is contracted, which it usually does when the economy is down. And then also you got the factor that a lot of people aren't working in their offices or labs or studios.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so fortunately we've got some solutions to let them work kind of remote anyway. So it's been okay, but I'm not saying it's my dream job because everything's rosy right now. It's a real challenge. But it is a great.
I I think I read somewhere that it was 3.5 billion in revenue. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah,
that's
all in with displays and and accessories. And plus, I also manage the retail business.
mm,
So our point of sale systems, you go to a Starbucks or a Subway, they've got the HP point of sale systems, kind of their electronic cash registers and such. That's all HP.
uh, well, that's pretty amazing because most businesses to get to that $1 billion level is pretty remarkable, and
Yeah.
you're overseeing 3.5 billion, so that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. Well, so the reason we started this conversation was you're actually going to come visit us. We're in the north, so we're going to be posting this online. We typically do these in person, and Jim was going to fly out here, but obviously because of the current circumstances. It's 2020 for anybody watching this in the future. It's not really conducive to having an in-person event right now. But the whole premise of this talk was originally going to be around how to attract talent to different places because Jim has done it successfully in multiple different places around the world. So he has a lot of knowledge to bring to the table. And so a lot of this conversation is going to be centered around um, talent acquisition and how that works, but also because of the changes in the economy, we should also look at the future of the workplace. And so I think going forward, we would have loved to. We typically have the event right here. We get rid of the ping pong table and have some folks here, but this is gonna have to do. So with that said. One of the things that really interested me was my wife, Ruby, who is my partner at Sitecast. She's done wonderful. She had first met Jim when they both were out at HP together in Boise. And so it's pretty remarkable what has happened with Boise. It seems like when the lab was first starting, that Boise was a sleepy little town, and now I think the last time I saw it, it's one of the fastest growing cities. And so can you tell us a little bit about your experience attracting talent there?
Mhm.
What led to that boom? What were some of the ingredients that places that are looking to attract talent, what were those ingredients? What was behind all that?
Yeah, yeah. So first, I'd say HP in Boise for sure was instrumental in and a catalyst for starting the growth. But I mean, honestly, when I moved to Boise in like early 90s, 92, it had been growing for 4 years. Like at the time, people were saying, "Man, our growth's been crazy. It's been 30% growth," and that was like many growth cycles ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, and HP for sure has been a catalyst in driving that. Just because as the business grew, HP grew there. HP, was very instrumental and very engaged with the community. Across all aspects of the community, huge engagement, and we actually saw that go up and down over time. And you could actually track, we went and looked at kind of did a little history lesson on HP Boise, and
Mm-hmm.
the engagement of the employees correlated pretty well with when HP was most engaged with the community.
Uh-huh.
And all we could really draw from it is that employees really like to be part of something that's bigger than just their job. They want to be part of something better. And whether it was really driving more human rights, inclusion, diversity, all those things that were really new topics to Boise,
Uh-huh.
um, the HP was super engaged. And then we went through some years where some different CEOs were cost cutting, getting rid of different employee programs, low engagement in the state of Idaho, in the community in Boise and with the state. And we saw that dip and we turned it back on. I mean, and almost right away, you just saw the engagement just go up.
Totally.
because we reestablished connections with the government. I mean, the capital is in Boise, so it's super, easy to have, relationship with the governor's office, all of the, kind of the key people driving policy, the HP, HP government relations would work with them. Like they were highly engaged with the patent legislation that they were putting through to get rid of kind of some of the patent trolling, and it was hugely beneficial to our business. But those kind of engagements were super important. Being engaged with the Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, the Bureau of Travel, the Idaho, the Idaho Technology Council, all those things, we just had engagement from all over the place. The universities, um, that, it's just a huge ecosystem, business ecosystem, and it's
Hmm.
closed loop. And the more engagement you can have from all employees in that, just the better it is for business, the better it is for the community. So, so outside of HP and some of the things they did that were a catalyst, Boise is just a great place to live. And I remember back when we were trying to recruit there, and I would have recruiters say, nobody wants to live in Boise. It's considered backwoods. You guys are, not very progressive. You're a bunch of hillbillies. Nobody wants to live there. And I was like, well, that you're wrong. And so,
Tell
but
us
we
how you
didn't want to
really
just say,
feel.
oh, you're wrong and be defensive or whatever. So we worked with the Chamber of Commerce, the Bureau of whatever. We started getting all the things they were doing to attract businesses there. And
Hmm.
we were using those to go recruit. And I'll tell you, somebody that likes to mountain bike, somebody that likes microbreweries, somebody that likes to hike and camp and go out, you know what I mean? It recruited for us. I mean, it was the easiest thing we ever did.
Yeah.
For people that want, what it has to offer, it was actually easy. And so now what's happened over the last, I'd say 20 years is it went from, hey, we need to share the secret to, hey, how do you stop sharing the secret? Because now it's out. And
Uh-huh.
now it's growing. Like, I think it's the number one growing city. I think I just heard recently it's number one growing city in the US.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Um, and with Corona, I think with the pandemic, you're seeing a lot of people know they can work remote. They don't have to be in a city. And you're seeing a lot of places like Montana, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, a lot of these Midwestern states and a lot of the central states that have a very cush or comfortable, outdoorsy kind of lifestyle. They're seeing tons of growth
Hmm.
because people are just like, hey, I can work remote. And so why would I live in a city when I can, go ride my mountain bike after work in real mountains?
That's
Or
that.
go on the lake, and where
Yeah.
you're at, you got all these lakes, you got people that are.
Yeah, and that's what we're finding here is that it's really a hidden gem, and it's one of those things where the all of the assets are something that works perfectly for remote working right now. It's the remote working is ideal because like with Ruby and I, during the day we can go for a hike, we can go biking, we can go paddleboarding, and we don't need to be tied to anywhere. And so yeah, it's probably very similar to where we are right now. So that's really interesting. I love the concept of getting the Chamber of Commerce and all of those other organizations involved because they are doing those things from very specific segments of the market. And so how what do you have any examples of like how you brought them together or some story that you.
Yeah, I think the best example was, I think it was and I'm going to get this wrong, but it was one of the bureaus. I think it was the bureau, the
It's not
tourism.
recorded or anything, don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. Don't share this with the Boise guys. They'll be like, Jim, man, you don't remember anything. No, it was the travel bureau, I believe, and they were doing. It was really about driving growth of tourism and conferences and businesses in Boise. It was a thing to get out there and get businesses to come do your conferences in Boise. Great place. And they were already kind of starting to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and with some others. And we just said, hey, I mean, we saw this video they made, and it was just like, oh my gosh, that's like the best recruiting video I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
we started using that. We started like, using it in social media. We started using it with our recruiters. And it was like, Matt, boom, boom, you just show that video. I didn't have to go explain to, a recruit all the great things. I just showed them that video and they're just like, whoa, that's Boise. And it's like, yeah.
Uh-huh. I love
And so that's what I say. Places like that tend to recruit themselves when you start highlighting the
hmm
lifestyle and why people are there and why they love it.
hmm
And that's what you want there anyway. I mean, the running joke used to be in Boise, when somebody moves to Boise, they're there 6 months and they're either only 6 months or they're there for 30 years
Yeah.
because it's like binary. It's like either it's for you or it's not. And
Mhm.
so, um, and over time, I mean, I was there a lot longer than I thought I ever would be, but we just really love the area. It's a great place because it's the lifestyle that we liked. It was great for raising our family. We raised all our kids there. Now we're empty nesters, and it's funny because now I'm living in Colorado in Fort Collins, and I just saw the list of the top places where people are moving to now that they can work remotely. And I think Fort Collins was number 4 on the list.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So, we've been fortunate just to find locations where, it's what, the lifestyle is just what we like to do. And you still have the opportunity to work in big, companies, world-class, cutting-edge companies like HP or whatever. And there's many companies in Colorado, same way, that if you're good at working with your community, local governments, to tell the story that everybody that lives there already knows.
hmm
They're there for a reason. If you get good at telling that story and leverage the different assets, whether you're recruiting a business or you're recruiting conference attendees or you're recruiting, tourism or whatever, you can use that to go recruit for universities. You can use it to recruit employees, and you can really use it to build out your ecosystem of talent. Whether you're hiring experienced people that want that lifestyle or you're hiring new hires or helping the universities recruit students that are going to stay there when they graduate.
Yeah, yeah. And what's really interesting about your background is that you had that experience with Boise, but you had a complete, I'd assume, complete opposite experience going pretty much across the world and doing this in Korea as well. So like what did you learn from that? I'd imagine it was quite.
So you're exactly right. It was like Boise and Korea. You pick two places that are like totally opposite. That's
Yeah.
the two.
Well, Ruby's from the Philippines, and so we're like, I'm a boy that grew up on a Native American reservation. She's from the Philippines. We couldn't have been farther apart, and so
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and so what's surprising though is a lot of the same things that were successful in Boise were also very vital and important for us in Korea, in Seoul, even though it's totally different. I mean, we saw some of the same things. Um, First, you got to know Samsung is it's like the crown jewel for if I mean it is. Think about the bigger Samsung, not the phones and stuff that we all know. The bigger Samsung, whatever, it's like 20 something percent of their GDP.
Yeah.
It's massive. And so, and you go work for Samsung, it's just like, whoa, you work for Samsung. Okay. And along comes HP and we say, hey, we're buying your printer business. No, all your employees now you work at HP. These employers are at first they're going, HP? Who's HP? Now,
Yeah.
wait a minute, and then of course they're devastated. It's like, hey, Samsung has just given up on us. And then they don't know much about this American company. Oh no, are you going to run this like an American company? You know, uh, Lots of concerns, lots of cultural differences. And so they weren't like super excited,
hmm
when all this happened. And then, when we went over there, we just started working with them in terms of understanding the HP way, all the HP values. Pretty soon they started learning more about the company. And they're like, wow, yeah, you're way different than Samsung, but we can see why you're successful. This is good. Samsung does it their way. They're super successful. HP's got a different recipe, also successful. The employees came to love it, but there were key things we had to do. We started recruiting the same way. I mean, at Samsung, recruiting is you put up a thing that says I'm hiring, and you got like, a million people in line saying hire me. And so we actually did some very, targeted recruiting with the big universities. We got very engaged with the students. We wanted them to know who we were. Luckily, a lot of the younger crowd that knew HP PCs, less about printers, they knew about the PCs. Definitely the Omen gaming, they're big on gaming in Korea. So a lot of the Gen Zers and younger, they knew. And so the more engaged we got, we started getting some pretty good momentum, but we also engaged with the community in terms of, hey, how can we help with local nonprofit? What are the local needs? How do we help with that? How do we get engaged with the government? And we did. We engaged with the AmCham and COTRA, and AmCham is the American Chamber of Commerce over there. It's super helpful in terms of getting us plugged in. We engaged with the local governments. We engaged with the ambassador. At one point, I actually got to meet the President Moon of Korea. Got to speak to him. It was very cool.
It's exciting.
But all of that created a network and created exposure for what HP was doing beyond just our products. Our sustainability, our commitment to the community, our commitment to employees. All those things started to shine through. And just like it happened in Boise for different situation, different place, but a lot of those things shine through and they made a difference.
Yeah, so there's seems like there's a common thread no matter what the culture is. And so I'd assume then going into Fort Collins, it's kind of you're seeing the pattern at this point. Yeah,
it's funny because I see a lot of things in Fort Collins. I see where they're way ahead of where we were in Boise. I see some areas where they're not as far along. But many common things, Korea, Boise, Fort Collins, in terms of what's our value prop beyond just the killer products that we deliver, the great customers we work with. It's really more about the company values, how we live our company values. And I think they're all timeless. The HP way is a timeless business model. Some people say, oh, that's a nice, the HP way is kind of a cute thing. It's like, no, that's it's not a management initiative. It's like a timeless business model for how to build a company. And giving back to the communities that we engage with, having vibrant communities is very important. Focus on our people, developing our people, including all people is super. It's not just talk. It's, we live it because it makes a difference. And sustainability. I mean, our planet's in a crisis. And HP leads there. Honestly, I wish we could be 1,000 times more bold. I wish the whole, industry would be right there with us, because leading is great, but it's better if everybody did it because the planet needs it. So those kind of things make a difference. And then you put that together with different locations and the values that you can sell of that location to attract people that want those values, those lifestyles. It doesn't matter. I mean, the same is true in California or other places. You'll get people that want to live in Silicon Valley. If you take your values, you take what you do, and you go recruit the best people, you'll find people that want to live in Silicon Valley, or you'll find people that want to, live in somewhere more outdoorsy, smaller. And you just let the values of the company, the values of the community, and what you value, you let that do the work for you. It takes a lot of a collaboration and partnering among the various groups to kind of do it right.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, so with you being the employer looking for talent, a lot of the stuff that I do in the community is around the economic development and trying to attract businesses like yours. What are some of the things that my peers could do? Not just like we're in the Northwoods, this video is going to go everywhere. So we're in the Northwoods of Wisconsin right now, and it's a really, really nice place to vacation and it's really nice place to work remotely. But there really isn't large industry here. You know, there's certain industries that have been timeless, but there's not a tech industry per se. We are here because I grew up here,
Yeah.
but for the most part, there really isn't a tech industry. You know, so from your perspective, what could the community do to attract, you know, industry or tech or, you know, something similar?
Okay. So first, just let me acknowledge this is a huge question.
Yeah.
Huge question with many different answers. So I'm going to try to be as structured as possible,
Okay.
concise as possible. So first and foremost, for sure, your chamber of commerce, your Department of Finance, um, your Department of Commerce, all your government agencies,
Yeah, for sure.
Local city, and your state government. There's many things they can do to attract kind of companies to come there.
Mm.
Super important. In terms of getting the big, an HP or an Amazon or whatever, yeah, occasionally you'll win the lottery and they'll come in and plunk down some big thing, but that doesn't happen like every year. Okay. I mean, you should always strive for that, but I wouldn't put all my eggs in saying, hey, we have to get these big whales to come here or we're not going to be successful.
Totally.
Because there's many small companies that will come and start. And so, and even more importantly, you have many companies that have started. And so I think as part of the plan to attract big businesses or medium businesses, there should be a plan to help your small businesses grow to become medium. Mm-hmm. Because then they don't have to recruit anybody. They're growing organic. They're growing because they're there. And in Boise, I think what you saw is for sure HP. Many people left HP and did startups. Huge start. Many companies in Boise came from people that worked at HP. And there were a few companies that got acquired, or some big. Microsoft bought one company and others. But I'll tell you, by far, the biggest growth vehicle the biggest catalyst to driving growth, the biggest catalyst was the small companies growing to become medium. They were successful, they became medium. Some of the medium companies became bigger and got acquired. Some of the very small companies, became sustainable. That ecosystem started to support growth in other areas. And in parallel to this, and I don't know, it's chicken and the egg, and I honestly can't tell you which it works, but I can give you other examples where I've seen the same thing. They focused myopically on, hey, how do we build out a degree program at the universities? They already had a great engineering school up north at the University of Idaho. I'm spacing. I've got Pullman on the brain, but that's where it's Moscow, Idaho. Excellent engineering school, and just very similar to the Boise State football team that went from kind of nothing to a powerhouse. They kind of had the same kind of growth in their engineering department. They had all the local big companies there, whether it's Micron, HP, Simplot, all these companies basically got engaged with their engineering school, and they really focused on building out a program. And same with the business school, same with the construction engineering school. And so in parallel, they're driving a ton of growth at the university, and that comes with a couple of things. One is you start to create talent. You start to organically create talent, and it's typically people that are going to stay there and want to work there because that's why they went to school there in the first place. And so that's number one. And number two, you also start to create a base on top or you start to fuel as a catalyst this small and medium businesses getting bigger, and the whole thing, those two pieces together, grow the businesses you have, build a solid program that gives you the right talent you need, that has people that want to stay in the area. It further fuels the startup, community. It further fuels the SMBs.
Hmm.
That starts to grow. And you see the same thing happen in Boulder, several years ago. It's now kind of a software kind of, powerhouse. Utah, go look at Northern Utah. The last 30 years, when they started, they started some huge education initiative with enrollments and increasing professors. They had expectations on graduates, number of enrollments. You had a lot of kind of smaller company startups that had started kind of simultaneously. And again, I don't know. In this case, I think in Utah's case, I would bet that it had to do with the investments the government made, the commitment the government made to their higher ed, all the state schools. But I don't know exactly, but I can tell you this. You go look at the growth that they've had. Utah is a software technology growth mecca right now.
For sure.
They had a bunch of small companies that got bigger. They got some small ones that became medium. They had some mediums that became big. Then you started having guys like Adobe, Intel, HP. You had a bunch of people start coming in there, and then with all those engineering programs, you started seeing things. Merit Medical. You see all these medical businesses. I'm telling you that you can start to create this ecosystem, but it wasn't by chance. And I mean, you got the Utah Technology Council working with the legislation, working with all the different chambers of commerce, working with, the universities. Same kind of story in Boise. And you couple that with kind of these other things that are, people wanting to live there, move there for the secret gets out, the lifestyles. And it's a great recipe for growth. I mean, it's been repeated all over the place. So it's not like, this isn't, my infinite wisdom. This is just observation.
Yeah, well, I can concur with that because throughout my 20s, I traveled from all sorts of different startup hubs. I was really involved with the startup world. And one of the things that I noticed, and I love the startup world, so don't get me wrong, but the one thing I noticed is a lot of startups will fail. But if there's already an established business that it has been doing well for 5 years, 10 years or so, and they just need something, that missing piece, that like oomph, and they might go from $1 million in revenue to $10 million in revenue in a year. And so the more that we could put a focus on increasing those small businesses to get a little bit further along, it's such a much more drastic impact for the economic vitality of the area. And so it's been really interesting to me to observe that, because like when you find someone that is really passionate about their business, they're ready to take it to the next level, and they just need that help. And so, but it seems like a big portion is put on starting businesses instead of scaling the business. And
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think it's both. But you're right. You gotta take the small guys and you gotta help them get medium.
yeah.
And you gotta take the medium guys and help them get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're not going to take a medium typically, and all of a sudden it's going to turn into the next HP. Now, sure, you get some success stories where some smaller companies get pretty big. But Boise has some great companies that were very small that are now, they're good medium-sized companies, and they've recruited a lot of talent there. And they've got an ecosystem. They got the Technology Council. But I think to your point, what you really do need, and this is where the small companies have got to partner a little bit. And I think the best vehicle is through the city or through the Chamber of Commerce. There's lots of opportunities for them to network. And you kind of do. I think I mentioned to you before, it's kind of like you're building a mall. You need you want a few anchor stores, kind of the big guys where even if they're not super close, but you got the HPs or the Microns or this and that, you got your anchor stores, and then you got kind of your SMBs in between, all the way down to the little kiosks that are popping up that all of a sudden turn into a store. But it's that ecosystem where you really kind of start building out, filling up your stores. It's filling them all. It's not filling it with anchor stores. It's filling it with the small guys and helping them get big.
For sure.
And expand. So
Yeah, that's that might be a good segue into one of the other areas that we initially weren't going to talk about, but is incredibly relevant these days, and for our area is incredibly relevant is the new way that people are working, and with everything that happened with the virus, we in my opinion, we accelerated almost all of remote working about 5 years in the future because the companies that were already doing it, they went completely deep into it, and the companies that thought it would never work were forced to at least try it, and then realized, hey, we still can, be productive without being in a central location. And so I was really interested in what you last time we talked about how you are addressing the issues that has arisen over the past few months.
Oh, so first, I agree with you. There were some companies that were already kind of, I mean, at HP, we were working on what we called the office of the future. We were just looking at big trends, freelancers and gig workers and people needing to be more mobile, not because, we thought there was going to be a pandemic, but
Mhm.
because, you had uh, customers that typically would, they would work within their office, but now collaboration with customers and with other partners is just accelerated so much over the last few years. We're looking at collaboration, mobility, road warriors, just people that had to travel a lot. A lot of our traditional power users and creative professionals needed to get work done on the go.
Mhm.
And typically it was because they were going to a customer or partner shop and they wanted to get real work done while they were there. So it was like, hey, how can they be chained to their desk with all their tools and workflows? So we created this concept of an office of the future, and I would say HP was right up there with many of the leaders in terms of being progressive on kind of what this mobile work could look like. But having said that, I can tell you, anybody that says they were ready for this, they're full of crap. Okay, I mean, we were very there, and it was like, I mean, the shutdown was still, it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
and someday we'll look back on this and we'll just go, wow, that was like a behavioral experiment of epic proportions.
Like, yeah, many books to be written.
Yeah, I mean, we just did. We took a whole world and we forced this everything from home experiment like overnight, like boom.
Uh-huh.
And of course, like you say, there were companies that were scared to death. They were like, oh, that'll never work. And then it was like, either shut the doors and shut the business or try. And everybody found out, hey, wait, we can actually do this.
Uh-huh.
Even at HP, where we've been doing it, I think we were pretty surprised at how smoothly we could still run the business. Now, of course, you're running on some debit. You got relationships and all this stuff that have built up over the years. You're running on a lot of debit or credit, however you want to look at it,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's been built up already in the bank. You know what I mean? And so at some point, you're going to have to get back to building relationships and such. But it was, yeah, it was super smooth for those that kind of were kind of ready. Nobody was perfectly ready. And for those that weren't ready at all, it was even, much better than they thought it ever could be.
Hmm.
And I think what we're learning is as good as it is, as good as the technology is, as smooth as it's been, all these cool things we've done to make it easy to work anytime. It also makes it easy to work all the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And now you've got kids at various, depending on where you live, you've got kids online, you got kids partially online and partially in school, you got some at school coming home. I mean, there's so many life complexities stacked up on top of people that are also working more. There's more Zoom meetings, more emails, plus they have the opportunity. The 5-step commute makes it super easy to work whenever, and
Uh-huh.
people are working a lot. And we got all kinds of statistics that shows they're working a lot more. And so we actually don't believe it's sustainable. As good as our technology is, as good as the solutions are, and as much as we're working with customers, and we've been, I mean, I would say over the last 6 months, we've innovated exceptionally fast to help customers get more productive, collaborate more, so they can better manage it. It's still not sustainable.
Hmm.
So I think I told you this before. I see this, we see this as a call for innovation. or we have to work with customers and we have to have like a step function. We've got to go create technologies and solutions that give customers a step function improvement in productivity. And they got to be able to collaborate very seamlessly, whether they're working at home or in the office. And I'll tell you, even after this season passes, it's going to be different. A lot of these changes are lasting. So you're going to have hybrid environments where you're going to have some people that do go back to the office and many that don't.
Mm-hmm.
So collaboration in the office will change. Collaboration at home is going to continue to change. And you want it to be seamless. Like your people can work. We want to go to our customers and say, look, we'll let your people work, connect, collaborate, create from anywhere. Doesn't matter if they're home, office, studio, partner, doesn't matter. We're going to make it seamless. There's a lot of innovation that has to happen to pull that off.
And I think one of the biggest challenges that I don't know if anyone, maybe, I don't really think anyone has figured this out is, so for me, I've considered myself like a digital nomad. I used to travel around and work, and I really haven't had a job my entire adult life. And I'd work in coffee shops, and I found myself out in these different startup hubs, and I would go to the startup, like the co-working places, especially when I lived out in Portland, Oregon, where we work, and where, you'd go into these and you weren't colleagues or anything like that. You didn't work directly with these people, but just bumping into other people in the water cooler chat, as they call it.
Oh.
That was so important to at least for my creativity, because I'd run into someone, oh, what are you working on? And they would just, it would be something completely unrelated to what I'm working on, but just hearing that might spark like, oh, that's an interesting, and it really helps the creative process. And
I've seen that at HP my whole career. You got people working on either, the one example is you got people working on something, they're banging their head against it. They're almost ready to say it's impossible.
Yeah.
And just Joe Blow walks by and looks at it and says, oh, what about that?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, that's the breakthrough we needed.
Yeah.
But then there's also, the way I think what you're talking about, you go to get a pop out of the pop machine, or somebody goes to the coffee station, or you go to the cafeteria or whatever, you're just walking around, you run into somebody, you're talking about, how you wiped out on your mountain bike last weekend, and it leads to something that he says, and all of a sudden you're talking about work with somebody that you don't work with every day, and you get, like you say, you just get some kind of a creative spark from that turns into a big idea. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And I think that's something we don't want to lose. And so someday you'll get it.
Obviously there's these like asynchronous messaging systems and things like that. But, is there a solution for the remote worker?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think, clearly, I mean, if we had the technology that we know we could deliver, available today, whether it's VR with, I mean, if I had a VR headset, and pardon my, I'm putting these on.
Yeah.
These are sunglasses. If I had a VR headset that were like this, with the resolution and performance and everything that you have today, and I could wear this like all day long, no problem. And it was connected to, like the opera and the NBA and the NFL and all this stuff. You could completely change the world, because now instead of having, for sure, live at the event, you can sell 50-yard line seats for whatever, 20,000 a year or whatever. But you can now go sell, 50 million 50-yard line seats for a much smaller price and make 10 times the money. So, you know what I mean? There's just things you can do. And when you get that, you get more of an immersive experience. But ignore the VR piece. Ignore that. Just having better, more seamless collaboration, like even these Zoom meetings that were just more interactive and more easy to drop in and drop out. Mm-hmm. You can conceptually see working. We're still all trying to figure this stuff out, but you could conceptually see once, if this evolves, for a year or so, you're going to start having different tools and different accessories that go with your Zoom meeting that all of a sudden make things that, almost as good as bumping into somebody in the hall. But we're not there yet, for sure.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe there's something about human nature that you'll never replicate with technology. Um, and so it's going to be a hybrid. I think you'll always have that human interaction um, that just leads to great things. People working with people leads to great things. I think the combination of adapting to this virtual stuff and that together, we'll probably get to a place where maybe innovation and technology accelerates because you get to a better place, like you get the best of both.
Yeah.
You don't have
Well,
to travel around the world to have that coffee shop conversation.
uh-huh.
I have it, I have 50 of them instead of one because I
Yeah.
didn't travel.
It's like just redefining that concept. And, even the VR, I'm just thinking of like Ready Player One, where they're all hanging out in
Yeah.
their like rec room or whatever that was in the book. And that is really interesting because they can be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Because as we evolve as a species, we're getting to a point where we have very specific interests and they're getting super specific. Some people might all gravitate to one type of sneaker or something, like where in your community you might not have that, but that's where you might find that globally.
But I see it with the gaming, the streaming. I see it with the communities that are popping up. I mean, social media for sure. Social media is kind of all over the place, but there's pockets of, I mean, don't even get me started on that. I think that's like the anti-progress. But there are pockets like where you actually get communities of people advancing. And when you start to get positive energy of like-minded kind of creative people advancing some topic, you can actually you can actually, you can advance the state of the art. And I
Mm-hmm.
think some combination of the two, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where, yeah, you're always going to have the human interaction, but you're also going to be able to accelerate it when you have this better virtual. So then it's more of a hybrid. Then the virtual piece maybe accelerates the interaction and vice versa. And you start getting positive returns. Um,
And that
that's
was
why, hey, I don't think it's entirely bad
yeah.
that the world is changing because, this, if it wasn't this, it's something else. But challenges always lead to opportunities.
For sure.
And this is going to lead to changes that are going to create challenges that are going to turn into opportunities that are going to advance us.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be better. I mean, I'm confident. It always is. People just make it better. It'll be better than it was before,
Yeah.
but we've got work to do.
Yeah, and that's it's really interesting because the never in human history has this been possible. You would typically be stuck with the people in your immediate surrounding, and now we can work with.
I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, this would have been a complete dumpster fire,
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
opinion.
true.
I
Yeah,
mean, can you imagine
no
trying to
business
run the
travel.
world?
Yeah,
Can you imagine trying to run the world on a teleconference?
yeah,
All those jokes, you got all those funny clips and stuff in social media. Those are only funny because everybody knows they've lived through it. They starred in that movie. You know what I mean?
hmm
They're super funny because it was painful living through it. And so, yeah, I'm convinced 10, 15 years ago, one of two things would have happened. I mean, either, it would have been a cataclysmic economic shutdown,
yeah,
or, there would have been a lot more people sick because they didn't shut down. You know what I
hmm
mean? So where we landed, I mean, the ability, the fact that our technology has evolved, that the world was able to, I mean, it's been an impact. Let's be clear. Look at the GDP. I mean, it's been an impact. But the fact that the world has been able to navigate the way we've navigated and keep things moving and stem the impact as much as they have, I mean, that's a small miracle.
hmm And I completely agree with what you're saying about how this is a great opportunity because in the past it wasn't possible to even do this, but now it's an opportunity in a lot of different areas. And so I just think about even this area where we have a huge focus on attracting remote workers. Because I know that it's pie in the sky kind of goal to get an HP or a Google or some large lab here, but the foot in the door is just some very innovative tech forward remote workers. And so with that in mind, like how do you see that cultivation? Is it co-working spaces? Is it, like what is going to be that catalyst to bring people together here?
Um, I mean, there's many. I mean, first, I want to clarify too. Don't ever stop trying to get the big guys to come there.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and I'm not encouraging anybody to play the lottery, like, because I like to take risks, but I don't play the lottery. I like to play poker, or things where you actually takes an
Later.
informed kind of, you can be deliberate about it and actually compete it out. But don't ever stop, because you never know when it could lead to a partnership. It could lead to so many different things that helps the community besides them plunking down their next big 8,000 person campus.
That's a good point.
And who
Yeah.
knows, they might not have any more 8,000 people campuses.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so you should always do that, just if nothing else, just to continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to how do you retain, one thing you got to do is, it gets back to what we did, like with the Tourism Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce and the Department of Commerce and all these folks that put together these videos talking about how great Boise is. And they did it not by, PowerPoint. They did it by showing people and showing the city, showing what you can do there. And these videos were just like, whoa. I mean, I could show that video. I'm telling you right now, I could show that video to 10 people and I didn't have to say 2 words. They were just like, I want that.
It's so true. Yeah.
You gotta establish your value prop. It's just like a business. Your Greater Woodlands area, you've got so many things that people love. I mean, why do all you guys live there? And why do people love it there? And you've probably got a lot of secrets. You talk about all your lakes and mountain biking. Probably a lot of people don't even know about it.
Yeah.
And so be careful what you wish for, because when the secret gets out, the people that love that, they're going to flock there. But you got to find your value prop for your community, your city, whatever, your metro area. What's your value prop? What's what's the reason why people are going to want to be there? It's just like if you're doing a business strategy. Once you've identified the market and the opportunity, you go in there and you got a strategy around, hey, I'm going to do something different and good, and this is the value prop, and this is why we win. So you got to establish kind of that thing. Like for my metro area, what is it that we're about? The lifestyle, the small opportunities for small businesses to grow, a growing tech base, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
Great place to raise families, great place, just all things that really attract talented people that want that. It's not, all the talented people it's not cookie cutter. They don't all want to live in Silicon Valley. And so once you have that, you go out and you start recruiting.
Uh-huh.
And this is all of the small businesses. By the way, you got to help the small businesses recruit so they can get talent coming in. And then you'll also, as you do that, you'll get people that say, oh, well, I didn't go work for that company, but you know what? I'm going to move there anyway because I can work remote.
Mm-hmm.
We went there, we loved it. I didn't want to work at that company, but hey, I don't have to. I can work remote.
For sure.
And then the other thing you can do, and I've seen, and I just say this very tempered, because I've seen it have basically little or zero effect, and I've seen it have a big effect. You can have like startup shops where, sometimes they'll offer, space for people to come in and have office space, similar to a WeWork, but really more of a startup shop.
Incubator kind of.
Yeah, incubator, trailhead kind of thing, incubator. And you have, you'll have lots of kind of very small incubation, tiny, not small, tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those will turn into things that grow. But again, I've seen those be marginally successful and some super successful. They just get, they get the right angel and investor and venture infrastructure around it. You get local people that that find, local business owners, local people that have money they want to invest, that find, hey, I can actually make pretty good money helping out these smaller companies, go from tiny to small and small to medium. And you start to get that ecosystem, then you're back to the other things you got to build out, which is the education and all the work to attract, businesses to come in. And you put all that together, and you've got ingredients for something that will turn into goodness.
I love that. Yeah, that's really good advice.
But
That's
one thing that you have to, and I don't have any science behind this. I wish I had a recipe. I can tell you the one common thread for sure in all of these, it does not happen by accident. And all of these different groups talk together. In the cases that I've seen the success, they all talk. The small businesses talk, the government agencies talk, the local communities talk, the university. You get a conversation going. And again, you might have forums for that, whether it's a technology council for the state or the city, the Chamber of Commerce, the Bureau of this or that, or the local legislators. However you get people connected, you got to talk. And that's where you start to get kind of, a little bit of momentum moving in these different directions, and it starts to grow. You start to get positive returns.
Yeah. How would you suggest that those conversations get started? Because I'm not saying that they haven't started here, but blank slate. Where.
Well, I mean, that's the good news, is there's never a blank slate. I mean, there's always, the Chamber of Commerce is, for all intents and purposes, every Chamber of Commerce wants to do good. So they're talking to some. I mean, it's not so much even changing what they're doing as opening the aperture maybe a little bit. And find where you're having discussions on university, and turn that into not just how do I develop a better university, but how do I turn that into a pipeline of talent that I need for where my businesses are going. So you got to talk to the small businesses and even the medium businesses and understand, what is it, if they're super successful, what does it look like? And as my university, as my education system, and it could be the trade schools too. Both are important. Just keep that in mind. Both are important. Whether it's trade schools or the universities, how do I take my higher ed and the trade schools and make sure that they're producing people that are in the same space that all these people want to grow? If success looks like this for all these different companies, you just got to make sure that you've got talent coming out of the pipe.
That's so true.
To support that success. And then you got to go all the way back to, I mean, universities don't just fill up naturally. I mean, first you've got to have a strong K through 12. You've got to have students matriculate and go to college. That was one big thing that Idaho's been working on. They've made a lot of improvements, but you've got to, and it's not so much like what you're going to develop with the university, where you're going to figure out what programs, what talent pipeline. This is just getting students exposed. You got to make sure you got strong government and local support for your school districts. Make sure you got your local companies spend time with these students to get them exposed to STEM, hour of code, girls that code, all these different things that, little science activities, companies that come in and do show and tell, get students exposed. The robotics, FIRST Robotics or whatever, the robotics competition has been.
Vex Robotics. Yeah.
Huh?
Vex Robotics. Ruby and I have been a judge for that. It's awesome.
Yeah, that for many communities around the world, that has been a game changer in terms of getting students that would have never gone into STEM totally immersed in it. They end up going to college when otherwise they might not have, certainly not in those areas. But the focus has got to be on getting students exposed and make sure that you're getting the support to get students that want to graduate. And when they do, chances are they're going to want to go to school locally. Some will leave because they want to do something different. But the more you can fill your colleges with people that want to live there, and they're from there, the more chances are that it's going to be easy to recruit the right talent coming out of the pipeline there.
Hmm.
And you start to get an ecosystem that just works.
One of the interesting things about like rural areas, and it's
Mhm.
on a side note, where we are is more of like a destination. People come to visit here. They may spend a week or a summer, but they don't. The vast majority of houses are empty the majority of time. It's crazy that there's so many second homes here, and so it's a really disconnected population when you look at how many houses there are
Yep.
versus how many people are actually here. And one of the challenges that's faced here is that it's like the brain drain that most rural places have is I did the same thing. Right when I graduated high school, I went to college. I didn't move back until just recently to build a family. But uh, there's actually, when you look at the numbers, that's really not that true. Like rural areas that are one stop sign and
Mhm.
there's just a bunch of farms, they're really hurting. But places like this is kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
And so, it's what would be your advice to like the younger folks? Because if it is a city, it would make sense that some of them stay and go to college there. But here, it really isn't the case as much where they typically go
Yeah,
to.
that's a great question. So first, I'll tell you, I don't know the answer, and I don't know who does, but I'm sure somebody's got some big ideas for very rural areas. Where most of the community works on farms, and a lot of people don't go to college because they're going to go work on the farm, and they're
Yeah.
going to take
There's
over. I
no
mean,
farms here, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, but in those communities, for sure, and you don't want to change. I mean, you don't want to change that.
Mhm.
They can get an education to learn how to better run their farm, how to incorporate technology to make their farm more profitable, how to better run their farm like a business. On and on and on. But that the hurdle from super rural to something that's a growing area like Boise, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But back to your opening question, and where you're saying, hey, one of the challenges is it's kind of a destination location. It's people are here to visit and then they're gone. We always have a lot of empty houses. I mean, back to your question about, hey, how do I attract people to work remotely here? Well, you're already got a big, huge head start over people that aren't destination locations.
Hmm.
So for all the reasons that people like to come there, for their vacation homes and their destinations and their vacations or their whatever, that should be the basis. All the things, the reasons that people come there, that should be the basis for these videos you create that are going to help you recruit.
For
Number
sure.
one. And now, number two, you've got a huge opportunity as more and more people work remote, and they've already got a vacation house where you're at. You got a huge head start.
Hmm.
So I would flip that into it's a challenge for sure, but look at the opportunity. And then, I don't know all the answers, let's be clear. But once you start going after, hey, this is an opportunity, once you start learning there, that's going to turn into the next thing and the next thing. And finally, to your last point about, hey, how do you get the young people to even want to stay? I couldn't wait to get out of this town I mean, you gotta, the SMB, the local businesses, I got to tell you, a huge part of Boise's success. I'll tell you right now, I've said it many times. You wonder why I say it. Look, the mountain biking, the breweries, the growing the university. Getting more. When you grow the university, you're getting more students,
Hmm.
and you're getting more programs, and you're getting more graduates that want to stay because they actually like the area. And so it's all part of it. And having kind of that kind of university student culture and the SMBs, and again, chicken and the egg. Um, when's the best time? It's planting a shade tree. It's just the same thing my grandpa used to say, right? When's the best time to plant a shade tree? 20 years ago. Okay, you can't do that, but you can plant one right now.
Totally.
So whether it's, with your talent pipeline, really getting the universities going, or helping your business ecosystem of small and mediums, help them grow. What can you do to help them grow while you're trying to attract other people in. The combination of those things, and each one we've talked about, we've only scratched the snow off the tip of the iceberg, but each of those areas you can go super deep, just like the education thing. How do you get students graduating wanting to go to college? How do you recruit to the colleges?
Yep. And that's I was interviewed last week by a journalist about this, about people leaving and coming back and all of that. And one of the things that I had mentioned is, personally, I think they should leave, at least for a little while, because if they're 18 and they've only seen this area, what kind of creativity are they going to bring that is outside the box thinking versus, maybe they went to other different states or other countries and they start to see how those cultures live and those businesses and how, and I feel like if they can go explore the world and then come back, maybe by their 30s or something, that seems like a winning solution.
That's one path. I mean, I can tell you, when I graduated from college, I didn't see myself flying all over the world.
Yeah.
I saw myself moving to Boise, Idaho, because it looked like a great place to go work. Had a great offer from a good company, HP, and I didn't know that I was going to basically see every corner of the earth. You know what I mean? I didn't know what opportunities were going to come to me. And there's others who did. They went, they lived somewhere else, and then they ended up coming back when they were ready to raise a family. I don't think that should be. I think you can get that. I guess what I'm saying is, I think you can get that. Even small companies in Idaho, small tech companies that started partnering with other firms, or you're a remote employee, you might be traveling all over. You get exposed to more things than you ever planned on it. So I don't know that the only way to get that is to send somebody, just say, hey, leave and come back. I think you can get it multiple ways, and the focus should be on how do you build this out, and whether somebody leaves and comes back with a perspective, or they just get it because they start working with a company that happens to grow and they grow with the company. Another way to do it is recruit people. I mean, if you're in tech, chances are likely you want your product or outcome or your offer is going to be something you want to offer to the world. Well, if you want to offer it to the world, you better have a world perspective on what it should be.
Totally. Yeah.
Because if you've got like a Boise, Idaho perspective on something you want to sell in Seoul,
yeah,
good luck with that.
Yeah.
You might get lucky. But I think the key is part of your recruiting process, either for the university or for the companies or eventually both, is you should be recruiting different perspectives from around the world, different views, different perspectives, different backgrounds, to come there and share. I'm telling you, look, you'll find all walks of life will value the same things that you do in the area. Your value prop is going to resonate with people all over the world that want kind of that in their life. You bring those perspectives in, and you start to see your community gets richer, your ecosystems get richer, and the offers, you start to see medium companies or small companies get medium. There's going to be some companies that aren't. They don't want to be a worldwide company. They want to be, I want to develop motors for Dave's, bait shop. That's what I do. And you can have that too.
So we're getting to the end here, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So how would someone that is in an area like ours, say it's me, how would we attract an HP to move here? Like what are the things? Are they actively looking, or who do you reach out to? From an insider, how do we get past the gatekeepers?
Yeah, I mean, it really, you got to start with your legislators. You got to make sure that you've got like tax laws and tax breaks and incentives that these tech companies will actually resonate with. I mean, if you do something, that's really not that attractive, and they can go to Boise or Boulder or Santa Fe, New Mexico, or somewhere else that's saying, hey, we want them here and we're going to do this incentive. Um, that helps. But so number one, you've got to have engagement from your legislators and your local community governments, to really make sure you vote into place and get the kind of the incentives and the climate that these companies will actually be attracted to. That's number one. Simultaneous to that, you better be learning about what are these companies wanting to do, where are they growing, what kind of incentives are going to matter to these guys. Google a few years ago, Google was, because it's not very often, I mean, back in the day, people were flocking out of, Silicon Valley because they wanted to have kind of business units in different locations. That's how HP started in Corvallis and Boise and Colorado, all over the place. They actually wanted to diversify away. They wanted to be close to other universities, all kinds of reasons. Many of the things we're talking about now, they were basically starting this to grow their bigger company. That doesn't happen as much now. I mean, it does. You'll see an Amazon say, hey, we're going to go build our next big thing here. We're considering 3 or 4 sites. Google was doing a lot with their cloud infrastructure, right? Google Cloud infrastructure and all their objectives. They were putting in things to support, their high bandwidth, low latency cloud things. And so you'll get pockets of that. That's why, but again, it turns into a little bit of the lottery. But how do you attract them there? Understand where they're going and understand where are they growing, where are they going business wise, and for where they're going, do we have the right talent pool, for one? And two, do we have the right incentives and the right business ecosystem that would even have them consider us? And so those two conversations need to kind of converge on, well, do we have the tax incentives? Do we have the business incentives? Do we have the supporting? Do we have the universities here with the talent that they need? Do we have the programs that are going to have the talent coming eventually? All these things that we've talked about, these also matter to the bigger companies, because the reason they're going to go there is they want to grow. And so all the reasons you want to grow are the same for them. So everything we've talked about is still important. And so I've given you taken the scenic route on my answer is you do the same thing with maybe one extra step, is to better understand these companies that might, have the opportunity to set something up in your neck of the woods, so that you can tune kind of these incentives to get them to do that.
For sure. Yeah. So I just realized, so if anybody's wondering why my lighting is, the sun is officially set. So I hope you can still see me, but
yeah, the video looks great.
Okay. All right. I've been watching the sun and I probably should have done more lighting here, but before the last question, is there anything that you want people to know, or someplace to visit, or what is you want to share anything with them? Or
no, I mean, I wish that I'm still looking forward to coming out and visiting you and Ruby and checking out the area. It sounds like a beautiful place. It sounds like many of the locations that my wife and I, my family, we all kind of live in across the country in different areas that are very similar to kind of Boise, the outdoors. We're very active, outdoors oriented. We like good places to raise kids and strong communities, all that stuff. And it sounds, everything you said, it sounds like one of those places. And so I look forward to coming out and checking it out, and meeting a lot of the business people there, and really learning more about what are the real challenges you have. Maybe I'd have better insight, less generic insight, but I think a lot of what I've talked about, I'll still say the same thing, maybe with more specifics depending upon where you're at. But no, I appreciate you reaching out. I hope that, what I say is useful in some way.
Yeah, yeah. We're really excited to host you once it's safe to do so. I think you'd really love this area. There's, with you loving bikes, there's hundreds of miles of bike paved and mountain bike trails. So I think you'd really love it. We also have countless lakes here. So my final question, and I love to ask this of everyone I meet who has really achieved a lot of wonderful things in their life. It's something that I think about all the time. If you could go back and tell your younger self, say 20 years younger,
Mhm.
what is one of those lessons that you feel like would completely, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned that you would have loved to go back and tell your younger self?
So I'm going to try to avoid the obvious thing, like buy Google, buy Berkshire, Berkshire Hathaway. Um, because if I could tell myself anything, I would, I'd take the top five. I'd say, go buy this.
For sure.
Don't ask questions.
Register google.com.
Sell the house, sell the bike, sell everything. You go buy this stuff.
Yeah.
No, I think what I would have for sure told my younger self is I would have focused on collaborating and being more engaged with partner. I mean, you always kind of, I don't know, when I grew up, and maybe it was just where I came up, you always want to kind of show you can do it yourself. Hey, I can do this. I'm, tough. You don't want all the help. But it's kind of like, I mean, I grew up playing sports too, and I played team sports. And I was fortunate to play on some great teams. And you're not on a great team unless it's a great team. And so, I would have encouraged myself to really apply that in general, that you don't have to show, how good or tough or independent you can be by doing everything yourself. You should really, the more you branch out, I mean, always do your part, but you should branch out and collaborate more. And many of these things that I've talked about that I've done over the years, I would have done more sooner, because it's in all cases, it turns into goodness. Is when you get the right people collaborating, it turns into better things. And I would have done more sooner if I could have, even on a personal level, more sooner. I would have advanced probably faster. I would have been more successful. Our startup would have sold sooner. Who knows? I just think doing more of the right stuff earlier would have been better. That's what I would tell myself.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. So I appreciate all of the insight that you have given us. We're going to be posting this online. Like I said, we typically have people here, but now it can live forever, which is nice. So we'll get this up on the air and share it with the local community here. But hopefully other rural destination style places can learn something from this as well. So again, Jim, I really appreciate everything that you've done for us. Ruby, really thinks highly of you, has worked with you. And so, I really appreciate the time that you've given us here. And I feel like a lot of people will take away some really good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've got a lot of respect for Ruby as well, and I'm happy to help, however I can. Hopefully, I've shared some things that are useful. I'm not the infinite source of wisdom. It's just really learning from smart people over the years, and hopefully some of that comes through. But I appreciate you, spending time with me, and I look forward to making it out there and checking it out in person someday when this season passes.
Yeah, for sure. We will love to host you. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, I am going to stop recording. Thank you so much. We will see you again.